3, we're going to be looking at some new civilizations developing outside of the West, looking at the Asian core area, and maybe a couple other places. But we're going to focus on like early China to start out today. So let's begin. All right, China is divided into two major geographical regions. You have the steppe, the desert, and the high plateau in the west and northwest, and the eastern zone, which is more suitable for agriculture. The eastern zone is subdivided into two areas, the north and the south. The northern area includes the Yellow River Valley and has dry, cold climate. And then the southern area includes the Yangtze Valley, which has plentiful rainfall and is relatively warm. China's natural resources include timber, stone, metals, has a soil, a cool climate of the north, and is suitable for growing millet. Rice may be cultivated in the warmer, rainier south. Agriculture in this region required the coordinated effort of large numbers of people. And so first, let's look at the Shang period. So you have an idea of what the area looks like. Now we're moving into the actual period. So the pre-Shang China was a land of Neolithic communities. Pigs, chickens, millet, those things were domesticated. Silk textiles were developed. You had bronze, metallurgy began around 2000 B.C.E. There were no contemporary documents to confirm the existence of the legendary Xia dynasty, which is XIA. Probably mispronounced it, but bear with me. XIA dynasty. Later documents concerning the Xi may be referring to one of the late Neolithic societies in the river valley. The Chinese writing system, which is more commonly known as the writing characters, developed during the Shang period. The Chinese writing system of today is directly related to the writing of the Shang dynasty, so it stood the test of time. The chief written remains are oracle bones used in divination. Butchering that one. Mostly dealing with religion and higher power and things like that. Shang religion centered around one supreme god known as Di or Dai, D-I, who could not be approached directly but could be reached indirectly through the ruler's ancestors. This made the ruler a link between heaven and earth and provided a rationale for their authoritarian rule. We typically understand this a little more as the divine right theory, which we'll learn about later on. The Shang elite was a warrior aristocracy who enjoyed hunting and warfare. They fought with bronze weapons and rode on horse-drawn chariots. Kings ruled directly over the core area of their kingdom and exercised indirect rule over the peripheral areas. So you had warrior kings. And then we move to the Zhou period. Zhou territory was dependent state of Shang. They defeated the Shang in the 11th century B.C.E. and adopted many elements of the Shang culture. The two founders of Zhou were Wen, W-E-N, who led the resistance movement against the Shang, and his son, Wu, W-U, who attacked the Shang capital and assumed the throne as the first ruler of the dynasty. The Zhou invoked their own deity, Tian, T-I-A-N, which means heaven, and introduced the concept of the mandate of heaven in order to justify their rule. The Zhou dynasty is subdivided into two periods. You have the Western Zhou and the Eastern Zhou. In the early years of the new dynasty, King Wu created a land distribution system similar to the feudal system of Europe's Middle Ages. Early Zhou rulers constructed a new capital city and other urban centers followed. Built in a grid pattern aligned with the North Polar Star, the design followed their ancient belief of feng shui to maintain harmony. That is still something you see many Asian cultures, especially in China, still practice to this day. And that has kind of spread throughout other cultures in the world. Religion played a large role in both the public and private life. Women were expected to live a life of subservice. Eastern Zhou period was characterized by a decline in the strength of the central government as regional elites began to rule their territories as independent states. They often fought with each other until there was a gradual consolidation into a smaller number of larger, powerful kingdoms. Warfare during this period contrasted with the earlier noble endeavors led by the elite. The later Zhou saw the development of larger armies made up of conscripted farmers, as well as larger numbers of casualties. Technological advances in warfare were adopted by the Zhou from people of the northern steppes. They learned how to fight on horseback and replace bronze with iron and steel. Advances in government came from a new class of educated men who became bureaucrats and recorded data for their rulers, administered the government's business, and offered advice to the rulers. And then this brings us to some major or some important topics when it comes to Asian cultures, Confucianism, Taoism, as well as just Chinese society overall. So Confucianism and Taoism had their roots in the chaos of the late Zhou period. Confucianism was founded by Confucius, and it assumes that human nature is essentially good, has a hierarchical view of the universe, society, and of the family, and is concerned with establishing the moral foundations of the government. Confucius was not influential in his own time, but Confucianism later became the dominant political philosophy in imperial China. Taoism is said to be founded by Laozi, probably mispronounced it, bear with me, Laozi. Taoism assumes that the universe is in constant flux, that there are no absolute moral standards, and that people should take the world as they find it. Taoism is developed into a complex system of popular beliefs and magic, and many Chinese have drawn on both traditions. Though Taoism might appear at odds with Confucianism. In society, the Eastern Zhou period saw the development of the three-generation family and the development of the concept of private property, including privately owned land. Women were more firmly subordinated to the patriarchal hierarchy. Their subordinate position was justified by the concepts of yin and yang. And so this is within that same kind of structure right there, the Warring States period. I think we'll get to that a little bit later. All right, so we're going to quickly talk about kind of the development of Nubia, early Egyptian, that type of thing. So if that part of your notes as well, make sure you get that. Nubia is located in the Nile Valley of the Aswan south in the Equatorium and forms a link between the tropical Africa and the Mediterranean world. Nubia's natural resources included gold, semi-precious stones, and copper. The development of the civilization in Nubia was spurred by the need for irrigated agriculture and by its trading relationship with Egypt. Nubian culture and Egyptian culture developed through a process of mutual influence and borrowing. Early Nubia carried out trade with the Old Kingdom Egypt, and the northern part of Nubia was occupied by Egypt during the Middle Kingdom period. In the southern part of Nubia, the Kingdom of Kush developed by 1750 B.C.E. Kush was noted for its metalworking and construction. Egypt invaded Kush during the New Kingdom period. The results of Egyptian occupation included the brutal exploitation of Nubian laborers and the imposition of Egyptian culture on the Nubian people. So the Kingdom of Meroe. A Nubian kingdom arose in the 8th century BCE, and for a time the Nubians ruled Egypt as the 25th dynasty. That's an actual name, 25th dynasty. The Nubian kingdom had its capital in Napata in 660 BCE to the 4th century. Napata period was characterized by continued Egyptian cultural influence, including the use of Egyptian hieroglyphics and pyramids. In the 4th century BCE, the kingdom moved its capital to Meroe, which was better located for both agriculture and trade. Both Egyptian culture influence waned during the Meroitic period, or Meroitic era. The ruling dynasty of Meroe practiced a matrilineal family system, and queens often were influential. The city of Meroe dominated trade routes, used reservoirs to catch rainfall, and became an important center of iron smelting. Meroe declined due to the combination of factors. These factors include a shift in trade routes, the rise of the kingdom of Aksum, A-K-S-U-M, and the depredations of camel-riding nomads. This is ancient Nubia right here. All right, we will come back to this one a little bit later as well, talking about the nomads. So quickly, looking at the Celts in Europe, I'm going to save that for that actual chapter as well. So we will come back to this. Guys, if you have questions, please make sure that you reach out. I am happy to answer any questions you have.